I think if anything, there's going to be one, unless there's a surprise out there. And the one would be Bengals receiver T. Higgins. And in theory, that's a surprise because the Bengals usually don't tag someone twice. It came out yesterday that the Bengals will likely apply the tag to T. Higgins unless they can sign him to a long-term deal. Then came the report from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN.com that the message has gotten through from the Bengals quarterback, Joe Burrow, to the front office. And that's really our second topic for today. The Bengals intend to attempt to sign receiver T. Higgins, receiver Jamar Chase, and defensive end Trey Hendrickson to long-term contracts. Intend to attempt. Whether or not they do it is a different issue. See, I think what's going on here is they know they have a problem with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has been making it clear that he expects them to keep key players around. It can't just be him making market value and then they'll just replace the accomplished veterans with draft picks who'll be younger and cheaper, and let's find out if they're any good. That doesn't work. They found that out when they let Jesse Bates go to Atlanta via free agency after he was tagged for a year and after they tried to backfill his position with Dax Hill via the first round. Didn't work out, and they could use Jesse Bates now. So Burrow has been pressuring them, and we broke this down last week. And look, I understand that Bengals fans don't want to hear this. Number one, I've learned over the past 24 years, fans don't like it when others talk about the things that make them worry about their team. They'd rather it not be discussed. But if you're a Bengals fan, deep down, you know that if Joe Burrow eventually becomes exasperated with the team putting winning behind money, he's going to want out. Just like Carson Palmer did 14 years ago. And 8 years after he took his stand with the Bengals, he was eventually traded right before the deadline in October to the Raiders after sitting at home all of training camp and the first several weeks of the regular season. He said in 2019, you need to put winning first and money second. And teams that have it flipped aren't really serious about trying to win. Burrow's comments over the past few weeks, most significantly the things he said on the Pardon My Take podcast, they suggest that the Bengals better get their act together or the clock is ticking on his decision to potentially draw a line in the sand, to potentially tap out on the Bengals. He's entering year 6. Palmer came to that conclusion after year 8. So, in the hopes of placating Burrow, they're going to try to sign Higgins and Chase and Hendrickson. Let's start with Higgins. He can be tagged, and it would be a 20% increase over what he made last year. $21.8 million was his franchise tag number. The 20% increase takes him to $26.18 million. 1 year, fully guaranteed. So if that's coming, and I remember going through this analysis with Dak Prescott when he was looking at his second tag with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys ended up giving him a 4-year, $160 million contract at the time. When you know, as the player, if you tag me, I got $26.18 million fully guaranteed for the next year. That's my bird in the hand. What are you going to offer me by way of two in the bush to get me to trade it in? And every offer that the Bengals make will need to be run through that prism. How does it compare to 1 year, $26.18 million? If the contract only has 1 year of fully guaranteed money, and the next year doesn't vest until next year, what am I really getting by agreeing to a long-term deal? You control my rights beyond this season, and to control my rights beyond this season, you got to give me more than $26.18 million this year. Obviously, that wouldn't be the cap number. That would be a combination of signing bonus and other bonus possibly and salary. But if you want me to give up my ability to play for the Bengals for 1 more year at $26.18 million and then become a free agent next year because they're not going to tag him a third time. Nobody's getting tagged a third time. There may be an exception or two, but the third tag results in a 44% increase over your second tag or quarterback money. If you're not a quarterback, you're getting the average of the 5 highest cap numbers from the quarterback class the year before. No one's getting tagged a third time. The number becomes astronomical the third time. So he can say 1 more year and then see you later, Cincinnati Bengals. What are you going to offer to get him to give up the ability to make $26.18 million for 1 year? Not top of the market, but it's all cash this year. What are you going to give him to get him to trade that in? It's that simple. As to Jamar Chase, look, they could have done this last year. It's their own fault. They led him to believe they were going to do a long-term deal. They offered him a contract that had dollars that were acceptable, but the structure wasn't good enough. We've reported that multiple times. The structure wasn't good enough. At the end of the day, Chase ended up being pissed off that they didn't follow through on their promise. And this is why I'm thinking it could be a little bit of a shell game here. Trying to make Burrow happy by attempting to sign these guys while not really attempting to sign them. You can say about any player, well, we hope to sign him to a long-term deal. Yeah, on our terms, not his. The 2 circles on the Venn diagram still need to at least kiss in order to get a deal done. And Chase, I think, is going to want to at least $40 million per year in new money average. He might want more. Might want more. Might be worth $45 million a year in new money average. Who knows? And I think part of what Chase is going to want this year, and we've said this before, a little extra compensation for the Triple Crown that he put together last year after they got him for less than $5 million. They got a Triple Crown, catches, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns from a guy to whom they paid less than $5 million. There may be a little bit of a Triple Crown tax that Chase applies. And the alternative is 21.8 or thereabouts. I think it's the number. The 5th-year option for Chase this year works out to being the same as the franchise tag last year for T. Higgins. And then next year it would be the franchise tag at a 20% increase, $26.18 million, or a long-term deal. And then Hendrickson. He's at less than half of the top of the market, and he's got consecutive 17.5 sack seasons. What will they offer him? They're not going to pay him Nick Bosa money, but halfway point between, I think he's around 16 right now, 34. Do the math. 27 a year? Is it going to take more or less than 27? I don't know. But bottom line is, it's not going to be cheap to keep all 3. And they're going to have significant money invested in the receiver position. There was a time, I remember this happening when Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden were both with the Cardinals. The argument was, well, you can't afford to have 2 receivers making that kind of money. You just can't. You can't justify it under the cap. I think in today's NFL, you can, because you need those 2 great receivers. The Eagles have done it. And that was Burrow's ultimate point last week to our friends at PMT. Just do what the Eagles are doing. They're finding a way to manage the salary cap and pay everyone. And the key is doing it quickly. Don't drag your feet. Don't play games. Don't piss guys off with a contract structure that isn't as good as it needs to be. If you move quickly and decisively to sign the guys you know you're going to sign anyway, the sooner you put the money on the table, the better off you're going to be. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.